Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast. I'm Christine.
And I'm Sam.
Hey, we have to do right off the top a very big thank you and shout out to Dustin Harder for sending us two fantastic cookbooks. One of his cookbooks that we don't have, Epic Vegan Quick and Easy. And he sent us another cookbook by a colleague of his, the Plant-Based Cookbook, Vegan, Gluten-Free, Oil-Free Recipes for Lifelong Health by Ashley Madden. Thank you so much, Dustin.
Yes, thank you, Dustin.
You shouldn't
so
have.
Appreciated. And we will definitely be using these in our cookbook challenges.
Yep. Add it to the list.
Absolutely.
Yeah, looking forward to digging into those.
Big time.
Yes. So, speaking of cookbook challenges.
Yeah, what did you dig into this week?
This week, we dug into, and I say we, I really mean me.
She really means her. I have nothing to do with this. I really don't.
We dug into the book, Chloe's Vegan Italian Kitchen by Chloe Coscarelli. Or Coscarelli. I think it's Coscarelli.
I think it's Coscarelli.
Yeah, and the recipe that I chose is funnily named Kate Middleton's Pasta Alfredo.
And why is it Kate Middleton's Pasta Alfredo?
The only reason it's called Kate Middleton's Pasta Alfredo is because she thinks if Kate Middleton were to ever come to her house for dinner, this is the meal she would make her.
Okay, that's kind of awesome. And I think we need to take up that challenge. So if Kate Middleton were to come to our house for dinner,
yeah,
what would we make for her?
Well, first I would hire a maid.
You act like the house is a mess.
No, it's not.
So
but
isn't.
It's Kate Middleton. She's a princess, for crying out loud, right?
Yeah, she's also a person.
That's true. That's true. But she's used to a certain level, a certain standard of living.
Which I doubt she was used to before she became a princess.
I would probably make her a lasagna.
Well, you do make some really killer lasagna. I can't deny that.
So I would stick, with Chloe's vein of Italian food and make her a nice, big, hearty vegan lasagna.
Okay. I can go with that.
What would you make her?
I really don't know. Oh, I do know.
What?
I would make a pie.
A pie?
A savory pie.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes, I would make a savory pie. I don't know exactly what the filling would be.
Yeah.
I need to do a little...
We could veganize that chicken and brie.
Oh, chicken leek and brie pie.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, if we could find a way to veganize that, that's what I would do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about this recipe. What did you think about this recipe?
I was very happy with this recipe. I thought the sauce was really creamy. It had the kind of filling feel of an Alfredo sauce.
Yeah, you do get a richness, and this sauce is comprised of nothing but veg. It's roasted cauliflower, roasted onion, and roasted garlic.
Which, don't you then use some almond milk to thin it out a little?
Almond milk, some lemon juice, a little salt, and pepper.
Yep. Yeah, so I thought the consistency of the sauce was lovely.
Yeah.
I personally could have used a little more salt and pepper, or maybe a little bit of a Parmesan flavor. Yeah,
I mean, she does recommend adding a vegan parm as a topping, but I agree. I would probably add in a vegan parm into the sauce itself, just to give it a little more cheesy flair.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Oh, it was very good.
The consistency is spot on.
Yes.
I did, when I was reading through the recipe, she recommended that you roast the cauliflower and the onion and the whole cloves of garlic at 425. And now, granted, everybody's oven is different. And when I read that, I'm like, ooh, that's a pretty high temperature to be roasting cauliflower, because cauliflower is kind of delicate.
Yeah.
And this is an Alfredo. You want it to be white.
Yes, ideally.
And yeah, as I suspected, it was a little too high of a temperature. So the cauliflower was really kind of browning a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So the sauce came out a little on the beige side. Yeah. But I wanted to follow her recipe and, do what she said.
Yep,
but
sure.
This is definitely a tweakable recipe.
Oh my gosh. So many opportunities.
Yeah.
on this one. Like
Yeah.
you could tweak it in so many different directions.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of crazy because what you end up with the cauliflower based sauce is kind of a neutral base that you can put almost any flavor on or
Yeah, I agree.
against, or, you know, so I thought that was really great. Christine did add broccoli to the recipe. There was no...
Well, a little broccoli on the side. Yeah, I didn't like blend it in or anything.
Oh, no. But you put broccoli...
I put broccoli in your bowl just so I didn't have to dirty another plate.
Right. But, you know, broccoli Alfredo is a great thing.
It is. Yeah, and I could have mixed it in, but the recipe didn't call for that.
Right. So yeah.
You know, I wanted to experience it in its raw form.
Absolutely.
And I agree. This recipe, I can see you could make like a mac and cheese with that sauce.
Oh, totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like bump it up, maybe add a little vegan cheddar to it or something.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep. That would be a very good mac and cheese sauce.
So this is a solid recipe that doesn't require a whole lot of ingredients, and it doesn't require a whole lot of time, especially if you have a high-speed blender. Mm-hmm. So, yay, got to use the Vitamix again.
I think Christine is going to start choosing her recipes based solely on whether or not she gets to use the Vitamix.
Right. And I do have a Vitamix cookbook.
Yes, you do.
Which is nothing but recipes made in the Vitamix.
That's right.
So maybe hit that up. Maybe make some soups out of it or something.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know how I feel
because
about
the
a
cool
good
thing
soup.
about the Vitamix, if you don't know, because it's such a high-speed blender, you can actually blend
soup.
and cook a soup at the same time.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It is pretty
We
cool.
haven't tried it yet.
No, we haven't. Not for soups.
No, we have to put that on the list.
Have we?
No.
I did use it for that one chickpea soup. I think it was an Isa Chandra recipe.
Oh, that was good.
But
that was a very
then
nice soup.
you make a certain part of the recipe in the Vitamix and then you add it into the soup.
Right.
But you could totally make the soup in the Vitamix.
We're going to have to experiment with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
And then just add the chickpeas in after.
Yeah. I like it.
I do too.
All right.
So yeah, I would recommend this recipe. And this is a really cool cookbook, mainly because I'm Italian, maybe I'm biased. But there's a lot of really good recipes. There's a lot of really great dessert recipes in this cookbook. So yeah, check it out. It's Chloe's Vegan Italian Kitchen by Chloe Coscarelli.
Yes.
150 pizzas, pastas, pestos, and risottos, and lots of creamy Italian classics.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good book.
So check it out.
Recommend.
Definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. We're going to shift gears now.
Ooh.
Because we watched the New Zealand documentary about the New Zealand dairy industry called MILKED.
Yes.
This documentary is available for free, which I hugely appreciate.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, they did like a release in New Zealand in some theaters. And then once that happened, once they had their premiere, they just released it for free on their website. And then Plant-Based News also picked it up. So you can watch it on YouTube also.
Yep.
You don't have to go to the MILKED website. But I recommend going to the MILKED website because there's so much
information.
There's so much information and so many resources as far as like the statistics that they talk about and stuff during the movie.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it.
All right.
MILKED.
MILKED.
The documentary. So this movie was directed and produced by Amy Taylor, was presented by activist Chris Hirwai. That we can get into all the people that produced it and all that after we talk about it a little bit, because they do have some really great people that gave money to help produce this film.
Yeah, that are backing the film. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about first with this movie? They did touch on a lot of subjects. Their main focus in the early parts of the film were definitely the environmental impact of dairy farming. So what do you want to hit on first?
Well, first, I'd just like to say that overall, this was a beautifully made film. I thought the cinematography was great. I thought the score was great. I thought it did an excellent job at showing some really difficult material without it being so overtly graphic that it would immediately turn people off. I appreciated
Right.
that a
Yeah.
lot. I also appreciated the environmental focus. I mean, especially it's something that tends to be forgotten sometimes, I think, especially in the United States, because just our pure landmass.
I guess so, yeah.
There's one cow for every 3. I'm sorry.
No, go
Just
ahead.
because of our sheer landmass and how much space we have for animals like this. So, for example, we have one cow for every 3 people
Okay.
in the United States.
Right.
Okay. New Zealand, on the other hand, we discovered yesterday after doing some fancy math after watching the movie
Yeah.
that there are more cows in New Zealand than there are people.
Yeah, more cows than people.
On a piece of land or several pieces of land that combined are about the size of the state of Colorado.
Right. Yeah. Now, New Zealand is not a very large country.
No.
And you have to take into consideration how much of New Zealand it's not habitable land because it's mountainous.
Right.
New Zealand is a beautiful country.
Oh,
I
gosh.
mean, just beautiful. And the way they farm there, they don't farm the way we do. They don't put thousands of cattle into small, tiny little paddocks or into buildings
Right.
the way that the industrial farm complex in the United States does.
Yeah.
All of their cattle are quote unquote grass fed,
Right.
meaning
they're pastured.
They're pasture raised. Doesn't mean that they're not crammed onto these pastures.
Right.
And also does not mean that what they're eating is grass.
No.
Right.
Or at least not solely grass.
Yeah. So like Sam said, there's more cows than people.
Yeah.
There's, what did they say? 6.2 million
Well,
cows
in the film,
right now.
In the film, it said about 5 million
Yeah.
cows, and we did a little research, and as of early 2022, it's 6.28 million
Yeah.
cows in
Yeah.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
And that's the milking herd.
Right.
That doesn't account
include-
for beef cattle or
Right.
anything else. That's just the milking cows.
Yeah. And so the dairy industry in New Zealand is virtually ruining the land and the water, especially. Literally
Yeah.
ruining the land and the water.
Yep.
Waterways. All their fresh water is being poisoned
Right.
because of the dairy industry there,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So yeah, to talk about that the amount of land that there's 103 million, wait, is it 103 million? 103,483 square miles of land in New Zealand. That's land, period.
Yes.
Not habitable land, just land.
right.
So if you do the math and not even considering that a good portion of that land is not habitable land, we came up with that there was 35.7 cows per square mile in New Zealand.
Yes.
That's a lot of cows. 35.7 cows per square mile. That's insane.
Well, I mean, if you think about the size of a square mile, though, a square mile, it's not like 30 cows are going to be packed into a square mile. They're going to have some roaming space.
Well, yeah. But still,
Yeah.
that's insane.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of cows. But when you account for the fact that a lot of New Zealand's land is not arable, is not habitable, that changes the equation considerably.
It's even more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably
Probably more close to like 60 cows per square
could be.
mile.
Hard to say.
Here's a fact that kind of blew me away. And this is just a worldwide fact. 96% of all mammals on Earth are human and farmed animals. The
Yes.
other 4%
Are wild.
are wild.
Yep.
That's just not right. I mean, you can see with that number alone, the balance is wrong,
Oh, incredibly wrong.
right? I mean, the biodiversity balance is just out of control.
Yes, it certainly is. But yeah, I thought this was a really beautifully made film. I thought you can definitely see an influence from films like Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy. It
Sure.
was made very much in that vein,
Yeah.
which I think is a very effective vein.
Right.
You know, it makes the film really very engaging, and it makes it very accessible, because you're kind of attaching your journey through the film to the journey of the producer, you know, the person who is going through this right in front of you.
Yeah, I think it's a really accessible
Yeah.
film.
Yeah. And
that's what we need. We need non-vegans to be watching these documentaries.
yeah, and I think that's where we get a little bit stuck in the vegan movement, actually, is because all of these films that we talk about, Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy and What the Health and Game Changers, and now Milked, and, you know, Dominion, and film upon film upon film. I think the primary audience for most of those films is vegans.
Yeah, I guess we just have to make sure that each one of us as vegans, influences somebody who's not vegan to watch these films.
Right. But how exactly do you do that?
It has to be like on a personal level. Somebody in your life that's not vegan, you have to say, hey, I think you need to watch this film, and watch it with them. Mm-hmm. I think there's no other way around it. I mean, you can tell people until you're blue in the face to do something, to watch something, unless you hold their hand and do it with them. I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, I think the question then is, though, how open are people going to be?
Yeah.
To seeing films like this? I mean,
well, I think if you just blew their minds a little bit with some of the facts, they might be curious to watch it, you know?
I don't know. Like, I'm honestly not sure.
Really?
If that would be enough. I'm just not sure. Like, I was thinking about this, you know, well, okay, great. This is a wonderful movie, and we thoroughly enjoyed watching it, and we learned some things that we did not know before, and, you know, saw some images that we had not seen before. And I appreciated all of that. And I was just thinking, well, okay, this is great, but I'm already vegan. They're preaching to the choir here. How can I increase the reach of this film? And my first thought, of course, was, oh, I can show it to my students.
Sure.
But I don't teach a discipline where this would naturally fall into the subject of any class that I'm teaching. So
yeah, you'd have to find a creative way to incorporate it.
Kind of fit that in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, then the question becomes,
maybe Earth Day.
There's that, but also because I'm certainly known for being vegan, mm-hmm. that could possibly be seen less as teaching than forwarding a personal agenda, you know?
Yeah.
And so I pulled back on that idea, and I was like, okay, no, I can't show it in a class or anything like that. I could encourage people to watch it, but
sure,
you know, again, like you say, you can encourage people to do things and it just won't happen.
Right. I guess the one good thing about vegans watching these films is education, that we now have more information under our belts that we can share with people.
Sure.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
You know?
No, absolutely. I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, now this film would be much more palatable to an omnivore than something like Dominion.
Yeah. I mean, there is a small segment concerning how this is impacting the animals themselves.
Yeah.
And he does do a little undercover work with an organization, a New Zealand organization that goes around and covertly films what's happening in farming situations.
Right.
They go to a tannery, which is kind of a nightmare, and but it is minimal.
Yes.
So, which I appreciated, because every time one of these films comes out, I kind of steel myself.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I want to watch this. I want to be able to, you know, see what they're talking about, but I also know they're probably going to show some stuff that's going to be hard to take.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. I mean, not everyone can make it through something like Dominion.
Yeah. I actually haven't watched Dominion.
Yeah. So
I feel I see no need for us as vegans to subject ourselves to that kind of, I mean, I already cry I cried in this film,
right,
in portions. Every time it comes to how the animals are treated,
yes,
and what the industry does, and how the humans that are involved in this industry are desensitized to the point where they mistreat the animals. It always breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where I'm like, why am I watching this?
Sure.
I guess, and we're watching just so that we can absorb the information that they're giving us,
and know as much as possible.
Yeah, in case there's information that we haven't found on our own,
Right.
And we always find some little tidbit of information that we didn't already know.
Absolutely.
Even though we try to keep ourselves pretty well educated.
Yes. I also appreciated about this film that they did talk a bit more than most other films I've seen about the effect that these actions have on the farmers.
Right.
I think sometimes it's hard for us to remember, because we're removed from it, that the farmers are just humans doing what they do to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not evil. They are not insensitive. They are not in it because they enjoy killing sentient beings. That's not it.
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, their work is inherited through generations of family farming.
Sure.
And it's not the individual farmers who are the problem. And they're not evil. And you can see, the farmers that they spoke to in this film were deeply affected by some of the things that they have had to do as farmers to, maintain the demands of the dairy industry.
Mm-hmm. And they threw a fact out in New Zealand between, I think it was between the years of 2011 and 2021, 167 farmers committed suicide.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is a dreadful statistic, but not entirely surprising. I mean, I don't see how any feeling human being couldn't. I mean, I think I would be absolutely destroyed if I had to kill one animal.
Right.
So those who have to do it, or have, that their industry requires that they do this repetitively.
Right.
And that they witness it. Like, I'm sorry, that leaves scars.
Yeah, over and over again.
Over and over and over again. It absolutely has to.
Yeah.
And you could see some of the farmers, as they were talking about the less palatable parts of their work, that they were getting emotional. They were getting upset. And there's, more and more saying that the incentive to remain in the industry is not particularly high.
No, I mean, how much debt? What did they say? Something like $38 million in debt.
Millions and millions.
The farmers
of dollars in debt
of New Zealand are in.
Yeah.
So the enemy here is not the individuals that are trying to
support their families,
survive.
Yeah.
They're not making money. They're just surviving. The enemy are these large companies, and in this case, it was a company by the name of Fonterra.
Yes, Fonterra. That's correct.
And they put forth such huge demand on the farmers to produce and produce and produce. And they're not even really their main export, and their main mode of profit is not even making milk for New Zealanders to drink. They want all this milk, they turn it into milk powder, and they export it.
Yes.
To companies around the world that put milk powder in their products.
Right. Yeah. The statistic is actually that 95% of New Zealand's dairy products are exported.
Yeah.
95%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. And of course, Fonterra's website and advertising is rife with greenwashing.
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, how they're feeding the country and I mean,
happy cows and healthy families.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. They, have programs for children to come out on their open farm days, and it's all staged.
Yeah.
Where they have all these happy, clean cows and everything's super clean. And just like here, the kids are indoctrinated in school with the milk coming in
Sure.
in cartons every day. And they're told every day, got to drink your milk for healthy bones and all that jazz.
Right.
So that's who the enemy is.
Absolutely.
these large corporations that are making billions and billions of dollars off of the backs of the farmers who are having to live their lives this way.
Yeah.
And
what I thought also was really interesting is that when asked, the farmers seemed very open to the idea of change.
Yeah.
Of doing something else that would make them more money, that would cost far less than maintaining large herds of cattle, as long as the mechanisms are in place.
Right.
And that there's support for that. And obviously there's no industrial or governmental support for changing their crop structure from something like dairy to something like hemp or pumpkins or just any crop that would flourish in a New Zealand climate.
Yeah. There has to be a completely systemic change in how these companies do business.
Yes.
I mean, there has to be. And what they touched on in this film, which I think is one of the most interesting parts of the movie, is the emergence of lab-grown milk products.
Right. The precision fermentation process.
Yeah.
Yes, which I can't explain it. I am not a chemist by any stretch of the imagination.
I can't either.
But essentially what this process does is it uses, I believe, bacteria and then ferments it to exactly replicate the molecules that are in cow's milk.
Right.
But without the cows, without the hormones, without the antibiotics, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And there's already products on the market using this method.
And so, there was one, I can't remember which pundit it was, saying that the advancement of precision fermentation, that process, could potentially, as soon as the product is less expensive than milk,
which they're working on.
The
production process has to be less than the production process of.
Right.
Yeah.
Would essentially wipe out the dairy industry by 2030.
Yeah, they're predicting the dairy industry will fall by 2030 because this technology is advancing and people are investing in it. And it's so much. I mean, we're talking now buildings filled with fermentation tanks like you would brew beer.
Right.
Okay. So this is so much better. It's such a much better model.
Yeah.
The only thing is there has to be systems in place. There has to be nets for these farmers. There has to be a system in place. We can't just keep subsidizing farmers to raise cattle.
Right.
There has to be a complete shift in the system.
Yeah.
To make this happen, subsidize them to grow, like you said, hemp or.
Yeah. They were saying hemp was doing very, very well in New Zealand.
And the cool thing about hemp is that it sucks nitrogen out of the ground.
Yes, it does. So it can actually help reverse the effects of global warming, of greenhouse gases, because it will suck nitrogen both from the earth and from the air.
Yeah, because the problem now, especially in New Zealand, the way they raise their cattle on the land like that, the land is so filled with nitrogen and their waterways are so over nitrogenated, if that's even a word.
We'll go with it.
That they can't grow standard crops. They won't survive. The land is dead.
It's toxic.
But hemp, on the other hand, thrives in that environment.
Yep.
So plant hemp, people.
Yeah.
They should definitely be looking into subsidizing farmers to transition from ruining the land with hundreds of head of cattle to improving the land and their waterways by growing hundreds of acres of hemp.
Yes. And the thing is, that transition would not be easy in a lot of different ways because, you have to ask about, okay, if the dairy industry collapses sometime in the next 8 years, which that thought is just...
Yeah, that's what they're predicting.
I mean, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around that. But if that is in fact the case, what happens to the current dairy cows?
Oh, well, yeah. They'll be slaughtered.
Yes.
There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way to avoid
you
that.
You can't, because it's not sustainable to keep them all alive.
No.
Now, granted, some of them I think can go to animal sanctuaries, but the majority of them will go to slaughter.
Yeah.
But I think that would be, I think that's a reasonable sacrifice to end the industry. Nobody wants to think of, thousands, millions of cows going to slaughter.
No.
But we also can't continue to be breeding them into existence.
No. Of course not. No, that's obvious. I mean, so the loss of millions of cows now means essentially not breeding billions of domesticated cows in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, this one figure, Fonterra and the dairy industry in New Zealand creates more greenhouse gas than ExxonMobil and all of Air New Zealand. So we're talking all the airplanes in the sky over New Zealand.
Yeah. And
ExxonMobil, and a significant amount more.
Right. Well, I feel I feel like the statistics surrounding the environmental impact of factory farming versus the global impact of the transportation sector has been pretty widely available for a while now.
Yeah.
I don't think enough people pay attention to it.
No, not the problem is the people that need to be paying attention to it, which is our governments.
Yeah.
They are, you could say it's denial, but it's not denial. They know it's happening, but it's like they just want to rake in the money, keep raking in the money, rake in the money, rake in the money.
Yeah.
At the expense of our planet. And the reason I love this idea about the lab grown milk and the fermentation process is it can be a moneymaker.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about money, that will change people's minds. Those people. What did that woman say about the people running their country and our country and pretty much every country around the globe? What did she say? They're pale, stale.
Oh, the pale, stale white men.
Stale old men are running the show.
Yeah. And
that needs to stop. Or the pale, stale white men need to wake up.
Yeah.
Because it's forget it. I mean, it's not even tipping point anymore. We are past the tipping point.
Oh, yeah.
So,
for sure.
I need to take a bio break. And we're back. I scared you?
Yes. Sorry, I was reading.
Oh, man. So, yeah. So, where do we go from here? I would just say I totally recommend watching this film.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought it was really well made. A lot of really great information.
And hey, you can get it for free.
Yeah, it's free. Definitely check out the website.
Oh, the website's fantastic.
Yeah.
If you go to the website and you download the MILKED booklet, what you're getting is all of the facts and figures that are presented in the film itself.
Yeah.
Essentially in a print form.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It is. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's beautifully made.
So if you want to be able to if you want to be able to access all the facts and figures, they're there. They're all right there. So I was talking about how they're grass-fed cattle in New Zealand.
You're going to dispel the myth of the grass-fed cattle.
I think everybody knows the grass-fed thing is a greenwashing term. But in New Zealand, they're cattle who you will see out in the beautiful fields of New Zealand, the nitrogen-rich fields of New Zealand. They're what they're eating is palm kernel.
Well, not solely palm
No,
kernel.
but the majority of their diet is palm kernel, and they import palm kernel to New Zealand to feed these cattle.
Largely from Indonesia, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane.
And so that, I mean, not only forwards the environmental destruction in New Zealand, but also in Indonesia, where forests are being destroyed.
Yeah, the rainforests of Indonesia are being decimated so that New Zealand can feed cows.
Yes. And of course, there are also a lot of human rights issues.
Absolutely.
Palm industry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dirty, dirty business. What else did I want to say about that? Oh, I mean, just imagine the carbon footprint now. We already know that cow's meat, animal meat in general, has a terrible, terrible carbon footprint.
Yes.
Now, multiply that by a gazillion because they're now importing all this palm kernel to feed the cows, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Right.
So we're bulldozing rainforests in Indonesia to feed cows in New Zealand?
Yes.
It's ludicrous.
Well, of course it is, but it's also what's been going on for decades.
Yeah. It's insane.
It is. I completely agree. I mean, and not only the carbon footprint, but I mean, particularly in New Zealand, the water footprint of dairy in general. I mean, I'm looking at this page right here saying that it takes 1,000 liters of water. So that's 250 gallons of water to produce 1 liter of milk.
Yeah.
This one's my favorite. It takes 5,000, let me say that again. It takes 5,060 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of cheese.
Yeah. Cheese is the worst.
Cheese is definitely the worst.
Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, of course
it makes no sense. The only sense you can make out of it are these big companies that are raking in the dough. Like I said, off the backs of farmers.
Yeah.
And the farmers are struggling. Even here in the United States, the farmers are struggling. And I was telling Sam, it's like, I mean, I had a friend when I was growing up that lived on a dairy farm. They just survive. Mm-hmm. They don't thrive. They don't make profit. They just hope to survive from month to month to month.
Right.
And this was a small family dairy farm. Mm-hmm. It's just insane.
Yeah.
And in order to keep that giant, terrible machine running, our government subsidizes these farmers to keep them from bowing out. Because that's what they all want to do.
Well, we can't say that they all want to do. We can't speak for all of the farmers of the world.
No, but I'm saying there is a large portion of the farming community that doesn't want to do it anymore. You know?
That may be true.
I mean, at least especially the farmers in this film. And the ones they interviewed anyway. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the people that helped produce this film.
All right. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's a veritable list of who's who.
Oh, it really is.
So executive producers, Susie Amis Cameron, who is James Cameron's wife.
Yes.
They actually have a farm in New Zealand, which they purchased, was a dairy farm. They planned on running an organic dairy farm, and then realized that was just, I don't know, a bad idea.
It just wasn't a good idea. Yeah. And then they themselves went vegan.
Yeah, so now their farm...
So they farm organic vegetables.
Is an organic vegetable farm. Producers also include Moby, Miyoko's Creamery, AUM Films, which is the people who brought us Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy.
Yep, Kip and Keegan.
Those are the main ones that I wrote down because they were the people that I recognized.
Right.
On their website, they do list, of course, everybody that helped to produce this film, helped to give money. And I was kind of thrilled to see that a good number of the executive producers were just everyday vegans
Yeah.
who had the money to give.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great.
That's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
And so thank you to those everyday vegans who are, blessed to have the resources to assist a project like this. That's awesome.
Oh, they interviewed a gentleman who ran an anti-dairy ad in newspapers or magazines in New Zealand. And he actually got death threats. So it's a pretty contentious environment.
Well, I don't think that's limited to New Zealand.
Oh, no, it's not.
I think any documentary filmmaker that is working on a film of this type, whether it deals with the dairy industry or the meat industry or anything else like that.
Yeah.
I think that tends to be a pretty common response.
I mean, well, I don't know if death threats are a common response, but yeah, there's definitely pushback. I mean, these industries, the meat and dairy industry, they want to keep it a secret what's really happening behind closed doors, Yeah. They really do. I think it was Paul McCartney that said if slaughterhouses had glass walls, we would all go vegan.
I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So why are there laws? And it appears that there's also similar laws in New Zealand that prevent people from seeing what's going on inside.
Yes. It's to protect big business.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
government protecting big business.
Yeah, but you have to say, why would the government create laws to keep people from seeing what's going on behind the doors of an industry? How bad is what's going on behind the doors of that industry?
Right.
In order for them to actually create laws to prevent people from reporting on it.
Yes.
So like Dateline or 2020, they can't go to a dairy farm and walk through that dairy farm, a big industrial dairy farm, and see what's going on. That you just can't. It's against the law unless the organization running that farm agrees to it.
Well, I think we can just wrap up by saying that, this is definitely a film worth watching.
Yeah.
That it did present things through a different lens than we here in the United States tend to see, a much more environmentally focused lens than we tend to get. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff that we see here, it's either very animal focused or very health focused, not as much environmentally focused. And so particularly when you're talking about a place like New Zealand, that is so small and so beautiful and so rich in resources, with particularly their water just being decimated by this industry. I appreciated the different angle.
Yeah, I did too. I think they did a really good job with this film, and it was beautifully filmed. So I would definitely recommend it. So everybody out there, check this film out. It's Milked. And like we said, it's free. You can get it on YouTube, search it on YouTube, or go to the Milked website.
Right.
And you can view it there and have all kinds of extra resources that back the film up.
And just for your information, the website is https milked.film.
Milk.film.
Milked.film.
Yeah.
Yes, is what we have.
Yeah, recommend the website. There's all kinds of really great information there.
Fantastic information.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for it on YouTube, just go ahead and search for plant-based news.
Yeah, plant-based news, or just put in Milked documentary and it'll pop up.
It'll pop right up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Well, let's wrap this here thing up.
All right. You usually have some things to say.
I got some things to say. Let's do a little housekeeping.
Okay.
Hey, email us. Email us if you've watched this movie, what your thoughts were, or recipes, if you have recipes or cookbooks that you think that we should check out.
Or if you want to tell us what you would make Kate Middleton if she came to your house for dinner.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Or if you just want to tell us how great we are, at compassionandcucumbers@gmail.com. We're still running our fundraiser for Mockingbird Farms Animal Sanctuary and wanted to shout out Mamacita for donating $25 to our fundraiser. Thank you, Mamacita.
Thank you, Mamacita.
Appreciate that. And that can be found at buymeacoffee.com/cucumbers. What else? You got any else? Anything else?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Great. Okay. So I guess we'll just wrap this up. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next Tuesday on another episode of Compassion and Cucumbers Vegan Podcast.
Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye. If you'd like to support the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/cucumbers and buy us a cup of coffee. Thanks so much for listening and for supporting us in what we're doing. We're really having a good time with it.